AI is starting to write code faster than teams can review it. Features pop up quicker, prototypes take hours now, not weeks, and yet delivery doesn't always feel any easier. Something is shifting, but it's not only speed. So, what's really going on inside product teams right now? Are developers turning into AI supervisors? Are we actually building better products or just building faster? And how much of this real versus just early hype? Today, we will be looking for the answer to these questions with Igor Ponikarchik. I invited him as he has spent the last year deeply embedded in project work with AI. Igor is a product manager, former senior product manager at Cubic Telecom, and someone I had a good fortune to work with across different setups for over 5 years. I'll put it this way, Igor has always been the type to get his hands dirty with project delivery. And I'm curious how that carries over into this new AI-powered world. Igor, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Honestly, it's good to catch up like this. We've been in the trenches together before, so I'm curious how your perception of the software development industry has changed with all this AI boost. So we will be talking about one of the AI coding tools, Claude Code, and what it really does to product teams. No hype, just experience and real workflows. This is Agile Redemption. I'm Antonuk. Let's go.
When chaos tears processes apart and teams wander in search of the truth, there comes a moment of change.
Welcome to the Agile Redemption, a podcast about software delivery, engineering practices, and the sins we commit in their name.
Igor, let's start from the top. AI coding assistants are everywhere right now. Every week there is a new tool, a new demo, a new promise. From your perspective, how are these tools changing the way teams ship products in terms of speed, quality, and collaboration?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And I'll be speaking today from the point of view of product management, right? And again, just a couple of things out of the way. I'm not technical. I'm tech fluent, but I'm not technical. So I will not be able to cover like a deep technical aspects of AI, agentic AI coding, but I'll be talking on a level of a product manager. Okay. So yeah, we're in a very weird situation right now where AI is not new, but it's still kind of a new thing to a lot of people. So when we're talking about AI, we're not talking about generative AI chatbots, like just using your chat GPT or Perplexity or Claude or Copilot. We're talking about agentic flows, which kind of automating or replacing some of the. So back to your question, I guess there's a couple of things happening currently in software product delivery and product management in general. Is number one is changing of workflows. So we used to a process when you do, you get the insights, and then you do discovery, then you write tickets, and then you refine those tickets, then you get, feedback, technical feedback from your teams, and then you plan them. So this is how it used to be. Now everything is going, basically we're flipping the coin a bit. So this is number one. So the flows are changing. So, and we hear more and more about AI native flows. Okay. They don't necessarily mirror the previous story, but we are redesigning them as we speak. Number two is the speed. This is crazy, and we'll talk about later, but the speed of development is crazy. So I'm sure all of you heard about things that before software development was very expensive, and teams and companies use business analysis designers, project managers, product managers to kind of compensate and basically remove risks from software development and make sure we're doing the right thing. Right now, it turns out that the designers and product managers are more expensive in terms of process than the software development. And then the third one is the role of all of us, particularly software engineers, because, I mean, I'm sure we will talk about this, but the trend is they are now less writing the code, more directing the code. So I think these are the three major shifts currently.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like how you frame it as change in how work is done, not just speed. Makes me think of something I came across lately. There was a piece in TechCrunch, and the idea was that developers are slowly turning into managers for AI agents instead of writing every line themselves. When you look at actual teams working, does that match what you see now?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good observation. And there's a reason TechCrunch shared this story. So it's very important right now. It's not about the role of a software engineer. We also should look at it because, as I said, the workflows are changing, right? So if you look at the role of software engineer, yes, before they used to write a code, they had to think a lot about the architecture, the structure, the data, and everything. Currently, the roles are a bit mixing and the line is getting thinner between the role of a product manager or a designer and an engineer. So currently with the new setup and new flows, I think code will be written by product managers and designers in terms of the initial kind of ticket writing. And the engineers will be looking into reviewing those pull requests, making sure everything is there, making sure all the checks are done and the tests are done. So I think that's the shift currently. And yes, the engineers are becoming less the writers of a code and more the reviewers of the code.
Okay, so not a full replacement, but the role itself definitely changes.
Yeah.
And now I'm curious about something more practical. When teams pick up these tools, do they actually trust them with production work? Or do they mostly keep AI for prototyping and experiments?
Okay, again, very important thing. I'm talking based on what I see and what I'm currently doing. So I cannot speak for all the industry, but what my experience currently is it's actually used for production work. So the engineers and product managers are actually using code to write the code. It's now, we're at the level where these tools allow to do production code. As I said before, you still need people, but enough people in the loop, right, to look through the code to make sure it's doing the right thing. You still have to be an engineer understanding all the basics, but we're writing the code currently with AI. The prototyping and experimentation, as you mentioned in your question, there's a bunch of ways to do prototyping. In a sense, a lot of people saying, oh, go use Lovable to prototype. But currently with the speed of development, I know some instances where people just use code to prototype. It's funny enough because it's almost already a production level version. But because of this speed, it takes like a couple of minutes. Because of the speed of this thing, you could actually use it as a prototyping. But instead of just in the classical sense of a prototype, like a Figma prototype, right, where you just click between screens, but they're dummy, they don't have any data. In this sense, when you prototype with Claude, it actually comes up with a production level prototype with the data. It's, again, if you use like a demo data with the data and everything. So it's amazing how you can actually use it for both worlds, for prototype and experimentation, and also as a production code.
Well, makes sense. And there is always that moment when experimentation turns into responsibility. And now I know you've been trying out Claude Code. And if you are willing to share, what kind of tasks do you already trust AI with?
Yeah. Okay. So again, let's separate. So I'm currently working for a very AI native company. And also I'm doing a bit of my pet project. Let's separate those two, okay? And both cases, I use Claude Code, okay? So for my day job, I use Claude Code. And again, there's a product manager. There's a couple of use cases for using. Let's go a level above Claude. When you install Claude, you have your app as a chat, one part of it, co-work as a second part of it, and the Claude Code. This is the third one, right? So with the first, and again, these are the paid versions, right? But especially for the Claude Code and co-work. But there's kind of use case for each of those products, right? For chat, again, we know how to use chat, so let's skip that part. Actually, can we go back for chat for a second? And back to your question about prototype and experimentation. The chat in Claude is actually a good tool to quickly prototype. not a lot of people know about it, but if you give it enough context to a Claude and provide like a references and saying, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what the customer journey I want to come up with, it actually creates a prototype, a clickable prototype, similar to what something that you can get with Figma, which is enough to present your idea or, I don't know, define like a basic user experience for your ticket. So this was, I was surprised recently by the level of those prototypes that you can get from and just a simple chat, okay? But moving then to co-work. Co-work is something that, product managers should do for research. It's an amazing tool. It's similar to Perplexity Deep Research or for ChatGPT research. So it dives deep into a lot of topics and comes up with a very structured information. And then it also can, generate documents, Google Docs or PowerPoint or numbers, whatever you want it to come up with. But also, if you use Notion, for example, or Figma for your design files or research files, then connecting to Figma MCP or Notion MCP would allow co-work to actually upload the pieces of research or prototype and everything right into your documents directory, which is amazing. So it kind of saves tons of time for research, and it does it really, really, really good research. So this is number 2, so co-work, and then Claude Code, which is a bit of a tricky thing. So it's not just like you open it out of the box and you just go ahead and start doing code. So again, just for the context, you still need to install the infrastructure. Most of the time you use the terminal to code, but the use case for that is for Claude Code. There's a bunch of it, one of it is writing the code, right? But as a product manager, before writing something, it's not like you're just saying, I want this and this. I mean, you can still do this and it does a brilliant job. But on a production level, when you're creating tickets for or user stories for a product, then you need to create the tickets. So Claude Code does a brilliant job creating tickets. Again, especially when you have the right setup and it has access to your code base, and also in Figma, it creates amazing products, amazing documents for tickets for refinement with your team. And then also, of course, if the story is simple enough or small enough, you can just go ahead as a product manager and create the ticket, create a code and submit a PR.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good way to put it. But what about surprises? When you first started using AI agents in development workflows, did anything catch you off guard?
I see a lot of people online saying, "Ooh, I've done this product for in 3 hours and, I don't need the entire team." There's tons of these stories out there. And so first of all, surprise number 1 is, especially for the Claude Code, it's not out of the box tool that you open and start, create me an app for running, for example, and that's it. You still need to set up the infrastructure level. You still need to set up your Claude Code. You still need to set up all your testing tools. So in order to see what's going on, what you're actually building. Also, I think there's a new challenge coming up. It's called, and also a lot of companies starting to offer services such as vibe-coded project cleanups. A lot of customers use Lovable or other products to come up with a product to show to investors or something. But then as they need to grow, then they hit the wall of, okay, this is not scalable. So you still need, surprise number 2, you still need a good senior architect to actually help you define the architecture, a scalable architecture, secure architecture, and maybe even set up. Don't get me wrong, you can, as a product manager, it's not non-technical, you can still set up everything yourself, okay? I'm not saying that you need extra people, but if you're thinking seriously into scaling your product, then maybe it does make sense to consult an architect to help you with this. So this is number 2. And number 3, you don't have to trust it completely. You still need to review it. So first of all, surprise number 3 for me, it is a brilliant tool. It saves so much time, especially when you do writing your ticket. It does ask brilliant questions. It almost like you're sitting in design thinking workshop and you have your architect and your maybe even head of engineering and your design director, and then they're looking at the feature and saying, okay, what is this use case? Let's think about corner cases, right? So normally the things that you would come up in a meeting and like a big refinement session, this happens in seconds. So especially if Claude Code is connected to your code base, it's an amazing tool to look into what you have right now, especially if you give enough context, and say, okay, what about this? It asks really good questions. But surprise number 4, sometimes it asks not the right questions. Sometimes it comes up with a huge tickets that needs a lot of refinement, but it's a minor thing. But surprises, it's so good at refinement that shocked me, because that's the real value. It saves tons of time for going back and forth and refinement, and spending a lot of time with people and actually refine it.
Okay, so I think the gap between expectation and reality, and that's where things usually get interesting. So let's talk about one of the biggest promises out there. People put it like that. You describe a feature in plain language, and the AI builds most of it. With tools like Claude Code, how close are we to that today? You already mentioned a bit, but maybe you can just add something here.
We are there. We're there. And again, without naming people, I see people just talking to explaining what they need to do. Again, the prerequisite for it is you have to have like a infrastructure set up. You have your architecture there. So once you have everything, and then once you have the first kind of iteration of a product, maybe, or like a prototype, then you can definitely talk through it. Again, it's not about the plain language. This is what I'm doing as well as a part of my job. You just kind of go ahead and describe it in the Claude Code use the standard writing skills or custom writing skills. But yeah, you describe, this is what we need to do. Honestly, the best way for that is how I use it. You can actually fit in the PRD file, maybe saying this is what we're trying to achieve. This is the context. These are the product areas that we want to update. So you still need a bit of a context, and if the infrastructure is set up correctly, it just goes into the code base, review what's out there already, what are the best ways to integrate, and then basically it asks clarification questions. So you kind of, again, explain it in a plain language and a human language. Okay, these are the use cases. And then you as a human needs to kind of define the limits. Okay, this is in scope, this is out of scope. And yeah, that's it. And it just goes there, creates a ticket. Or normally my process is you create a ticket first, because the ticket, this is where you define what you want to do, what are the limits, and what are the use cases, what are the connotators, and you refine it together with Claude Code. And then once you're happy with this, you can just go ahead and refine it or take it through tech review with your tech leads and everything. But if you're fine, if it's just a small feature, you literally say, now let's code it. That's it.
Okay, fair enough. So you mean AI still need guidance, not just instructions? An important distinction, in my opinion. And then from a product perspective, if someone starts working with tools like this, where does the impact shows up first? In planning, development, testing, or maybe all at once, where you see it in the first place?
Okay, so from the product management perspective, okay, so there's a couple of steps we need to make sure. So delivering features, it's just part of the job, a small part of the job. And this is definitely where Claude and AI agentic coding tools helps a lot, specifically around writing tickets. So, because I think what took you a couple of days, maybe a week to go ahead and kind of be a business analysis and write those tickets and define all the corner cases and acceptance criteria, and you did it with your hands. Currently, it does it in minutes, in seconds. Sorry, I did not measure, but it's super quickly, right? So this is the biggest benefit, I guess. But then if you go a couple of more steps before, because the real role of a product manager is to look at the product, and there's a couple of ways, and see, okay, what we can change, update, what, see where what metrics can be fine-tuned to deliver better results, and, based on your North Star metric. So this is where, again, Claude and other AI tools can help, kind of using the, kind of a research feature to understand what are the opportunities in your product working. Again, it's an amazing tool for brainstorming. If you give enough context to this tool, specifically around your business area, your goals, your markets, if you provide all those tools and give enough context about your product, or maybe access to a product, right, that it could be an amazing tool to come up with a roadmap and say, okay, you can do this and that and that. And then you as a product manager's job is to prioritize and say, okay, this is brilliant, but our North Star is, for example, this, and we can do this and this to move it. So again, it's an amazing tool to understand your product and understand the trends and market shifts and actually suggest you what can be done. Use it cautiously, I guess.
Okay. So sounds to me like the bottlenecks move, but don't actually go away. And you know what? We've already seen cases where AI tools made costly mistakes when people gave them too much freedom. So my next question is, when teams bring AI into production workflow, what safety measures do they actually need?
Right. Okay. So first of all, as we mentioned at the beginning, you still need people in charge of approving things. This is where the engineers comes in the current workflow, is to review, right? So you still, when you push your PR to Git, you still need, depending on your process, depending on the complexity of each, you still need 1 or 2 or 3 engineers to review it and approve it, make sure, the sense check there. But on top of that, you still need, depending on your product complexity and your workflows, you still need your security checks, your compliance checks, your testing in place. Is it automated? Is it manual? It's, it's based on your approach. But this is the last part before going live, right? But also, I think the safe bet would be for small features, yes, after all the reviews and tests are done. And again, in Git, most of those tests are automatic, or you can, hire external people to do that for you. Security and testing and usability testing. But what I'm saying is that, usability testing should be done before. But if you've done it, then, you're safe to upload your code to production. But again, as a final level of protection is to do it soft launches, or maybe, like a small test groups where you launch first, see if it works well, and then go into production for your entire user base. But this is for sure, you still need people to review what's going on. There's still hallucinations in those tools, right? And you still need people to review it, and preferably a couple of them. And then you still need all your tests. And again, you still can actually soft launch it and test to make sure everything is, 100% okay.
Right. So you still need strong engineering discipline, and maybe even more than before. There is something else that caught a lot of people off guard. A 2025 study from Meter showed developers actually got slower with AI, mostly because of the back and forth prompting, reviewing, fixing outputs. Have you seen that play out yourself? Does it still hold true now in 2026?
Again, I'm talking for myself. I don't see this. And honestly, teams are crazy fast, right? So the level of speed our delivery is amazing. And this is a good sign. The only thing that I see right now is, because of this speed of development, the new kind of challenge that product teams will have is deciding what to deliver, okay, and actually supply work for the engineers. Because right now, because of this speed, you can actually do anything. You are in a position where you can, the engineering speed and cost became so, the speed's so quick and the cost is so low that basically you can do everything that you wanted to. You can cover all your technical data. You can take into account all the insights from your, of course, decide which one to do. But you can fix all your bugs. You can do all your improvements in terms of performance and speed of your systems and security. So now you can do everything. The biggest challenge is, right, okay, what do we build next? Mostly, what's next for our product? And now the challenge is you don't have that much time to actually sit down, strategize, test and everything, because before it took ages to go through, through development life cycle. So business people and product people had a lot of time to sit down with presentations and consultants and they go, well, this is what we were planning to do. Right now it's becoming more reactive. Okay. Engineers need work. Okay, we need to supply. But at the same time, the biggest risk is you need to make the right decision quickly. So this is the change that I see. But from the speed of the development, no. They're now becoming super quick, super efficient, and this is crazy.
The Agile Redemption.
That's a good reality check. Thanks, Igor, for these insights. Now you've worked as a product manager and as a consultant with different clients. When product teams or stakeholders see AI written code, how do they usually react? Do they trust it or do they still push back?
Right. So I don't think that clients looking into AI written code, I think there's a general trend that most of the companies, boards of directors and senior leadership teams are actually promoting heavily going all in AI. Okay. So now it's not about, do I trust the AI or, can I use it in a production level? I think there's another question. How do I actually do it? Right. So this is not a question, shall we do it or shall we not? Now the question, okay, how do we do it safely? And I was recently talking to a head of engineering of transport for Greater Manchester, and they are now starting to go into the AI, into AI and embarking on the AI journey. So again, for most of the companies, it's not as a straightforward, let's just, set up this or that tool and let's code. It's about, okay, how do we adopt this on a company level? How do we make people use it? How do we make sure it's secure? How do we make sure that the code is safe? So there's a lot of questions, bigger questions that companies are looking into right now. Again, the level of AI generated code or products are not the question. It's the adoption and the frameworks and, what's the next step to actually for me to do this? Because now a lot of companies are pushed to do that. If you're not a part of this journey, then you're losing.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that dynamic too. Curiosity on one side, hesitation on the other. But let's step back for a second or maybe even get a bit philosophical. If AI starts writing a large percentage of code, how does it change the role of engineers, product managers, and tech leads? We already have touched on this topic before, but maybe in a nutshell on this.
Yeah. Again, the only way for me here is just to kind of fantasize and become a little bit science fiction writer and share my thoughts. So it's just my thoughts. Okay. It's a funny thing. So there's a lot of moving parts at the moment and there's no clear kind of direction, I guess. So from one side, now you don't need that many engineers, product managers and designers and tech leads to deliver a software product. Okay. The biggest kind of thing that I see right now is the traditional squad is, it could be a bunch of software engineers, normally 3, 4, 5, 6 people, depending on the squad. And then you have a designer, and then you have a product manager. Sometimes you have a QA on board in early days. Right now, you don't need this huge team. You can just have a designer, maybe shared designer, maybe shared product even, and 1 or 2 engineers, right? Including one of them should be like an architect to make sure that everything working fine. So product managers and designers can write code right now with the Claude Code. And then also they have advantage of understanding the business layer of the product and the product metrics and what needs to be done to move it, right? So this kind of business/commercial perspective allows them to make the decisions of what needs to be done, right? From another hand, the engineers, they can do the same thing because I'm sure you've heard of a term vibe PMing. So now you can vibe code, you can do vibe product management, and you can create, ideas, user stories, roadmaps. So again, tech lead or engineer can be a Swiss Army knife man. So it's kind of difficult to say what the future will be. We are currently, I guess, the industry at the moment is playing with different models, different ways of working and different frameworks and workflows. It's so difficult to say, but it feels like there will be a balance. I think the engineering teams will shrink to smaller teams, almost like in the military terms, those special operations squads, A teams, which can actually quickly, and they will be responsible. I think, this is my thinking, they will be responsible for a small streams of product, not just responsible for delivering and shipping features, right? But responsible for their the outcomes of the product. And this is the dream of a product manager, being responsible for outcome, right? So they will be owning a certain metrics, certain features, and then just on the top level, there will be people kind of aligning all the small squads, make sure that the product in general moving towards the bigger value. But I mean, right now, it looks like engineers could be the group that can do everything. Product managers, if they manage to learn how to set up everything and how to use Claude Code and a bit of a couple of, terminal tricks, they could be, a group who can do everything, again, from writing things to coding. And the funny thing is, designers can do the same, because designers understand the customer journey. They understand how to impact, how to influence, the behavior. And again, if you can set up the Claude Code and everything, happy days. The only caveat here is that the engineers and product managers, again, I guess to do a really good job, you have to be a bit of an architect or like a really good engineer to understand the architecture, data, infrastructure, and everything. So this could be a challenge. But again, right now, it's not clear what the future will look like for us. But it's interesting to be a part of this journey.
Sure. Well, it's definitely something to think about. All right, but let's get practical and wrap it up. Say a product team listening to us wants to start trying Claude Code tomorrow. What's a smart first move?
Right, okay. So let's say this product team are still doing things the old way and they want to go, okay, we need to do Claude Code. So I guess at this stage, depending on their journey, but if they already have a product, I would say just, have your small group that will have a senior engineer to help with the setup and everything. Have your product and designer and maybe a couple of engineers. So you don't have to go with the entire team from the day one, because there's still a learning journey. You still need to figure out your skills, Claude skills. You still need to figure out the entire workflow, test it a couple of times. So I would say just define a small part of the product that is not mission critical and try to do the entire journey end to end. That's it. Learn from it, adjust, because I'm sure you will create, you'll have some blockers and you will hit the wall. So this small team will spend like a couple of weeks, a month of building this cycle, development loop, test it, make sure it works. And then after that, when you are happy, just go ahead and actually make it official on the company level, saying now we're doing this thing. The thing is, and this is amazing currently what I see, if you just say, okay, this is the new ways of working, yes, there will be a couple of people saying, this is not right. But just go ahead, yes, things can be messy at the beginning, and that's absolutely fine. And to be honest, like I speak currently to a lot of people, a lot of product teams and engineering teams about this. And honestly, we are all in this messy middle. We're all like, nobody knows what's the right thing. And that's the beauty of it. So my advice for a product team, just go, start doing it, create the entire life cycle, like the full loop. Even if it's ugly. And you know what, my best learning is growth is all about feeling stupid at the beginning. I mean, this is the signal that you're doing the right thing. So go out there, set up the Claude Code, make sure your product managers are using it and designers, because it will involve using terminal, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people, and do this entire journey, test it, see it, and then just roll out for the entire company.
Okay, so just give it a try. Yeah.
No, Alex, no, not give it a try. The thing is, there should not be a way, like a pullback plan. The idea is we're going there, guys. There's no other option. We're going there. But instead of just going all in from day one, we have this small team doing this, right? They will test it. They will share all the information. We will align it, and then we'll roll it out. So again, not try, but do a first step. Put it this way, do a first step.
Okay, Igor, thanks for joining me today. That was a really grounded conversation. And as for me, I'll definitely have something to think about later. And honestly, it was great to catch up like this.
Thank you, Alex. It was great. And thank you very much for having me. Always pleasure speaking to you. And I do hope that your listeners learned something today.
Thanks. To our listeners, I hope you found this episode as thought-provoking as I have. Don't forget to subscribe to Agile Redemption on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or SoundCloud. I am Alex Antonuk. Until next time.
The Agile Redemption.